Now, this is the program being recorded on August 1st, the afternoon of August 1st. And, of course, we're passing through the anniversaries of the beginning of World War I. And I would point in particular to the anniversary yesterday, the assassination of the great French socialist leader Jean Jaurès, Jaures, with a little accent on the last E, and he was assassinated 100 years ago yesterday as he was organizing a general strike, and this was a general strike against war. The entire Socialist International had pledged that if the imperialist finance bourgeoisie started a world war, that they would stop them in their tracks with a general strike. And the one significant leader, the most prominent leader of the Second International who attempted to make good on that pledge was Jean Jaurès. So he is a hero for us from many points of view. Maybe we can give you some quotes from some of his great speeches. I'll certainly try to in the final segment. But he was organizing that general strike. And that reminds us, if something's going on you really don't like, you got to consider a general strike as the possible answer. And on the other hand, there's no good calling for general strike left and right. You got to have some reasonable hope that it's going to be carried out, right? Although sometimes you just have to do it. All right. We have to, first of all, address this question of the Ukrainian false flag warnings. And this comes from Commander Strelkov of the Donetsk People's Republic, DNR, Donetskaya Narodnaya Respublik, I guess. And they're talking about plans being matured by the Kiev fascist clique for a large, stunning false flag operation. One of the reasons they do this, and I've been aware of this for many years for other constructive political purposes, but July and August are the months when the news flow declines and you can get the mass media to cover things, especially in Europe and especially in France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Bavaria, these areas where August 15th everything shuts down as more than any other time of the year. This is when you can get stories covered. And remember, the Ghouta fraud was a year ago, right? The fake NATO false flag attempt to blame chemical weapons on the Assad government of Syria. That's last August. And now we're going into that danger zone of false flag season, we might say. The year before, of course, it was the attempted coup d'etat by Ben Rhodes and company using television as well as bombs to try to overthrow Assad with a decapitating strike. Well, it turned out that the modern state in the form of Syria was stronger than these imperial attempts, right? The modern state is stronger than the empire. That has been, I think, shown in wars. But now you can see what we're going into. So here's the point. Strelkov and company have had a press conference, and the most detailed I have here in German. Commanders of the Donetsk People's Republic warn about an imminent orchestrated, faked terror attack by the Kiev fascist clique. The Secret Service of the People's Republic of Donetsk has told the political leaders there that the Ukrainian army is preparing a big-time provocation. The goal of the provocation is to stamp the Donetsk People's Republic as a terrorist organization and attempt to blame it for the killing of the civilian population. And this time they've come up with an idea, goes beyond their phosphorus bombs that they have been using. It goes beyond the ballistic missiles that the Kiev fascist clique has been firing. And it's going to be something like this. A rocket attack it will be rocket attacks, ballistic missiles with the goal of attacking the water treatment plants and other facilities where chemicals are stored in Donetsk and Lugansk. And the specific is in one of the water treatment plants in Donetsk, there's about 120 tons of chlorine, and in another one, 160 tons of chlorine. Another possible target is a chemical facility with ammonia present, and that is in Golovka. And the idea is that there will be these ballistic missile attacks and then a propaganda campaign to discredit the People's Republic of Donetsk and to try to implicate the separatist militia. These are, of course, atrocities that will be done by the Ukrainian army, in effect, against the civilian population. And then this announcement goes into the question of which way will the wind be blowing as the chlorine cloud comes back down. Then it's got a large area. It's got a large radius of effect. And most forms of life, or all forms of life, will tend to die in that area. Tens of thousands of people can die, and maybe more, depending on which way the wind is actually blowing. So he stresses that the militia of the Donetsk People's Republic and the People's Republic of Lugansk will not carry out any terror attacks against their own population, not against the Ukrainian troops, not against anybody, as long, and their main goal is to protect the civilian population from these effects. So this is now a false flag alert, and it comes from Colonel Igor Girkin and also from Strelkov. Now let's talk a little bit also about some other details. There are fragmentary reports of this on the internet. The resistance, the anti-Kiev groups, have received information that in the next few days, Kiev neo-Nazis are planning a terrorist act, one or several, in the large cities of Ukraine. Now, this is slightly different. This is that they're going to do an own goal, right, an Eigentor, an Autorete in the western part, maybe in Lvov, and then blame that on the Russians and their separatist friends. So the resistance received information that in the next few days, the neo-Nazis are planning a terrorist act in large cities of Ukraine. Avakov and his deputy, Avakov is the interior minister of the Kiev clique, during recent days have already provided informational cover-up for these actions. The minimum goal is to impose a total dictatorship over Ukraine, pretending it was Russia implementing the terroristic acts. The optimal goal, add invasion of Ukraine by Polish, Lithuanian, and possibly other NATO troops. We'll be back in a minute. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. It's August 1st, 2014, 100 years since Germany declared war on Russia, and France and Germany mobilized, and Italy declared neutrality. That's 100 years ago at the beginning of World War I. And this is the heavy-duty stuff actually began today, although the Russian mobilization had been going also on the ordered on the 30th and then implemented on the 31st. So we're looking at these two classes of possible false flag, right? One is the Ukrainian forces, the Soldateska, fire a ballistic missile at these chlorine or ammonia deposits in the eastern cities. Another one is an operation supposedly called Spalahu Diembrievi. Spalahu Diembrievi. We'll check what that might mean. A SBU, a Ukrainian KGB major, calling himself Alexei Nikonov, who is part of this ruling clique. And the idea is that they want to have a false flag on their own territory, Reichstag fire equivalent, and then blame that on the Eastern Ukrainians and, of course, on Russia. So that combination is extremely dangerous, and you got to inoculate people. And I would stress all of those who gave energy, time, gave up their substance, in other words, in the 9/11 truth movement. Now is the possible payoff of this. In other words, what we're going to find out possibly here is how much skepticism, how much sophistication and intelligence we've been able to inculcate into the U.S. population, European and other populations concerning this mother of all false flags. So far, the 9/11 fraud, September 11th, 2001, have we done our work? Have we builded better than we knew, or not so good as we had hoped? So we're gonna find that out. But don't believe it. In other words, everybody brace yourself, because we are now going into this territory. And remember that the goal of a lot of this stuff is, it's not so much triggered by anything in Ukraine. I mean, obviously there are things going on in Ukraine. One is that the government is tending to fall apart, right? Yatsenyuk, the great IMF austerity, shock therapy enforcer, Yatsenyuk has been voted out, but they won't. Turchinov and Poroshenko won't accept his resignation, so they want him in there. Of course, he was the darling of Madame Nuland. And then the other side of it is, of course, that the Ukrainian armed forces are having a hell of a time. They got desertions. They've got a member of the Kiev Rada of the fascist clique had gone to, I think, even Western Ukraine and tried to recruit people into the military, and they treated him rather roughly. I think they beat him up. So that's interesting. So they got all kinds of problems. And the political crisis, of course, is that the IMF shock therapy is now beginning to bite. So there are plenty of reasons on the ground. But the big one is the BRICS Bank. It is this idea that for the first time since 1944, there is an alternative game in town. It's not just the Anglo-Americans and their crushing neoliberal and libertarian Washington consensus conditionalities. Now you've also got the possibility of other things, right? The BRICS Bank is the other thing. One significant leader, the most prominent leader of the Second International, who attempted to make good on that pledge, was Jean Jaurès. So he is a hero for us from many points of view. Maybe we can give you some quotes from some of his great speeches. I'll certainly try to in the final segment. But he was organizing that general strike, and that reminds us, if something's going on you really don't like, you got to consider a general strike as the possible answer. And on the other hand, there's no good calling for general strike left and right. You got to have some reasonable hope that it's going to be carried. Now, this is the program being recorded on August 1st, the afternoon of August 1st. And, of course, we're passing through the anniversaries of the beginning of World War I. And I would point in particular to the anniversary yesterday, the assassination of the great French socialist leader Jean Jaurès, Jaures, with a little accent on the last E, and he was assassinated 100 years ago yesterday as he was organizing a general strike, and this was a general strike against war. The entire Socialist International had pledged that if the imperialist finance bourgeoisie started a world war, that they would stop them in their tracks with a general strike. And the